And we're live. Hi, everyone. Welcome to this week's episode of Stripe Dev Chats. My name is Cecil Phillip, and today we're going to be talking about what's new in Stripe Checkout and Stripe Payment Links. And if you folks may have seen us do some of these things before, our friend here, Jonathan Steele, he comes on every couple of months just to give us a quick update about some of the new features and greatest updates that, the product team has been working on. So really excited to have Jonathan here. And for folks that don't know or have never met Jonathan before, Jonathan, why don't you, give a little bit of an introduction and tell folks who you are and what do you do?
For sure. So I'm Jonathan. Great to be back, Cecil. And I work on the technical solutions engineering team. So my team help developers and our users integrate with Stripe. You may have spoken to me on our Discord server in the past, but I also work closely with the checkout product team to kind of ensure that what they're building aligns with our users' kind of points of frustration and points of friction.
Awesome. Now, before we get started, again, like we said, we've done tons of videos and live streams and different things about Stripe Checkout. But for folks that may be new and have never ever seen it before, could you give us like a really quick elevator pitch about like what is Stripe Checkout exactly?
For sure. So Checkout is Stripe's hosted payment solution, hosted in that it is kind of completely pre-built, a pre-built checkout payment page that you would redirect your customers to. So it's ideally the kind of the quickest way for you to get up and running with Stripe today, as opposed to the traditional custom integration flow, which leverages kind of payment element directly. That requires a bit more integration effort on your part, whereas you can kind of get up and running with checkout in a matter of hours, or even quicker with payment links, which is kind of a no-code spin-off of checkout.
And one of the things I always tell folks about Stripe Checkout, in my opinion, is if you're just getting started with like your payments integration, Stripe Checkout for me is like one of the easiest ways for you to actually just jump in and get things up and running, right? Like you don't have to worry about things like PCI compliance as much because we kind of handle some of that stuff for you. The payment methods are there. The form supports different locales and different currencies and all these types of things. So it kind of just makes it a really easy path to just kind of get started, which I'm a huge fan of. Now, like I said,
checkout is oh, sorry. I was just going to say, go ahead and add into that. Just checkout often adopts like a lot of the newer features available on the API, and you kind of get those for free because the payment page is kind of, as I said, pre-built, hosted by ourselves. You don't need to kind of continually adapt your checkout flow to account for this new feature or this new kind of currency that we support or something like that. You just get all that for free. So what we find is a lot of people start off with checkout. They will use that, and then they might find 2-3 years down the line they may need a more custom integration, and then they would kind of look elsewhere, perhaps adopt the payment element, that kind of thing.
Nice. Now, I remember the last time that you were here, which is just about a little bit over 3 months ago, you came on and you spoke about, I think it was custom fields in our hosted checkout form. You also spoke about the address elements that was out on the time. And I think you also spoke about, I think we had some new buttons, like the new buy button, right? So again, like just different things that folks can use. And for folks that may not have seen that episode, again, go ahead into YouTube. You can look up what's new in checkout and payment links. And that would have happened just about like 3 months ago from today, right? And we're in July right now for folks that are watching the video. So Jonathan, tell us what are some of the things that you want to talk about today? Like what are some of the new things that you would love folks to pay attention to?
For sure. So today I'm going to be mostly talking about, I'm going to be completely talking about some new beta features that are currently in the pipeline for checkout that are due for release very soon. So these features are not available today. They are in beta, but they will be releasing within the next kind of few weeks to few months. And they kind of pertain to the pricing table, which we've spoken about on previous versions of this stream. Enabling no-cost orders with checkout. That's been a big point of kind of frustration with checkout users in that they can't apply 100% off coupons. We've kind of been working on enabling that. And as well as that, we're going to be looking at kind of how you can enforce subscription uniqueness. So a lot of people find that sometimes customers end up having duplicate subscriptions if they're implementing checkout and pricing table or payment links. We're going to look at how you can kind of prevent that from happening as well.
Gotcha. All right, cool. Let's do it. So why don't I do this? I'm going to switch over and bring your screen up, and then we could kind of like work through some of these demos. Sounds good?
Sounds great.
All right, cool. Your screen is up now. All right, and it looks like we're taking a look at the Stripe docs at the moment.
That's right, yeah. So right now I'm on the documentation for our pricing table, which was our kind of low-code, no-code embedded component that launched last year, where you get this kind of pricing grid for free on your own web page that launches checkout sessions automatically. So that's been like really, really well adopted by users. We've heard like so many great success stories from people using this. Large users, small users, but there's also been a lot of feedback. And one kind of big point of feedback was, how can I use an existing customer object that I have inside of my Stripe account with the pricing table? Now, the current behavior for the pricing table is that it will automatically create a new customer each and every time you check out from the pricing table. So again, this would happen. This would end up causing users or end up causing merchants to have duplicate customers for this essentially the same person, and that would kind of spiral into issues where they were kind of not able to track who was who relating to their internal systems. So we've been working to enable using an existing customer object or customer ID with your pricing table sessions via this brand new parameter on the pricing table, the customer session client secret parameter. Now, you'll probably be asking, what is a customer session? And that is also a good question. And this is a new object and a new resource within the API that is kind of also in beta alongside this feature. And customer session allows you to kind of like authenticate your customer or authenticate your users with the Stripe customer from your front end applications for use with like Stripe.js, the pricing table, and other kind of front end integrations.
Nice.
So the pricing table leverages this. So the idea is that you would create a customer session, passing your existing customer ID that you've like stored in a session token or in your database somewhere. And what you'll get in return is you'll get this kind of this client session token that's returned from the API, and you can use that with pricing table in this context to initiate a checkout session for that specific customer. Does that all make sense so far, Cecil?
Yeah, that makes sense. I had a question for you because this sounds like you said, our customers have had this problem, and it sounds like a problem I've also run into as well, even though I'm not necessarily a customer. When I use things like payment links, as an example, when I use payment links, it's really great for, again, creating like those one-off, hey, I just want to get money from you really quickly, right?
Sure.
But I've also run into cases where, and for folks that don't know, payment links is kind of like our low-code, no-code way that you could add a product to your Stripe dashboard and get like an actual URL that you could share with people to get, to get paid, right? And then, you don't have to write code, but you can if you want to. Now, when I use payment links, I have a use case where I'm actually not using the dashboard, but I'm creating them programmatically. Like I create dynamic links, so to speak, right? But in creating some of these dynamic links, like you said, like I notice that it creates, every time someone checks out, it creates a customer per checkout session, right? Per completed checkout or whatever. So would this be a future option for that? Because it sounds like the pricing table and payment links have a similar scenario, right? And I know that's a question a lot of customers have asked. So could this potentially be a future solution to that?
Good question. It's very observant that you've kind of connected those together. So the way that majority of people use payment links, like you said, is via, they go in the dashboard, they create a payment link, they get their buy.stripe.com URL, they send that to all of their customers to pay as they need. And what will happen is, if there's a customer object required on that session, we will automatically create a customer. There's no way to reuse a customer object with a payment link today. Now, the way that we can kind of work around that is by using these embedded components, or these embedded UI components. So pricing table is an example. And we've also kind of spoke about one just a bit earlier that wraps the payment links, and that's the buy button. And this same primitive will also work with the buy button. So you'll be able to use customer sessions with the buy button to reuse customer objects with a payment link, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So you can't necessarily, you can't, for example, add a existing customer to the actual payment link URL itself, but using the buy button, which is like a UI component that essentially initializes a payment link, you will be able to use the customer session API in exactly the same kind of primitive as I'm showing today for the pricing table.
Nice. Awesome. Yeah, I'm sure that's going to be a huge benefit for a lot of our customers, that they still want like that low code option, right? But they just want to have a little bit more flexibility in terms of, like, again, being able to manage the customers that are created from it.
The problem we have with payment links is obviously the nature on which they are created and shared, as I spoke about, and like they are essentially just a URL, and with that is benefits because they're so easy to use, but also has its drawbacks, right? And we can't just there are obviously security concerns about just passing a customer ID to a payment link, or a customer ID to a pricing table. That's some of the feedback we've heard is, well, why can't I just pass it a customer ID? Well, we don't recommend that you expose those in your front end kind of application code. So that's why you need to use a customer session to authenticate the customer. You get this kind of client secret back that you can reuse, which kind of are, they expire and so on and so on. So that's the kind of security element, and that's the kind of fine line we're juggling between a great product and also something that is really easy to use.
Yeah, for sure. And I think another reason I ask is because I speak with folks that have different types of business models, right? So when we think about our, probably like, I guess our highest, and ours in the industry, not necessarily Stripe, when we think about like the highest use case model for payments, it's usually someone opening a browser and going and clicking a buy button, right, on somebody's website, like an e-commerce store, or we're doing donations or whatever. But that's usually the use case, right? Like I go to like a page and I click on a thing and it does something. And sometimes that could be a mobile app as well, right? But what I'm trying to get at is that there's some hosting infrastructure, right, that's like you're interacting with to do that. I've also spoken with folks that, again, have lower, I don't want to say lower scale business, but don't have such high technical requirements. As an example, people that do yard work or contractors or whatever, and they do a lot of their businesses via text message. They don't have a website and they don't have an office. And well, their office is their van or their truck that they drive around, right? And then they want to use payment links, or they want to use Stripe and different things. And they're like, okay, I just want to send you a payment link to do a thing. But at the same time too, I want to be able to track my customers, right? Like I don't want 10 Jonathans in the dashboard or 10 Cecils in the dashboard.
Sure.
But at the same time too, I don't want to build a website and I don't want to build a mobile app just to do the thing, right? And so for folks that have those alternative or a little bit more nuanced types of businesses, I think again, looking at ways that we can support them with sessions, specifically with customer sessions, would be really interesting.
Yeah, there's definitely a balance to strike here, because pricing table and payment links were predominantly low or no code solutions, right?
Yeah.
But by introducing customer reuse with the pricing table, specifically in this example I'm going to show, we're already kind of adding an additional kind of step of complexity there, because you need to kind of now have a back end that's going to create a session, create a customer session. So you've got to have a back end component there. So again, these are kind of points of feedback that we've heard from users who have been trying beta, and things that we're definitely kind of thinking about moving forward. Definitely some difficult problems to solve, but also kind of it's great to see that we're making progress in this regard anyway. And a lot of people who have been using this are really keen, are really happy with it overall. Yeah, but I've got a quick demo to kind of show how this works. All right, nice. Okay, so yeah, let me just quickly down to my dashboard here. So you can see we have this pre-existing, this is me. We have this pre-existing customer object here. If you take note of the ID, it ends in ACVS. And what I'm going to do is I have a little Next.js application here, which is just going to create a customer session for me for that customer that I just shared. We'll return a client secret, which I'm then going to pass to a pricing table component, which will allow me to initialize a checkout session and check out for that specific component. Now, the way that we'll be able to tell that is because what will happen is the checkout session, when we launch the payment page, it's going to be pre-filled with the existing data from that customer. So if we look at this customer, we can see that it actually already has a payment method saved to it. We have a name, we have an email address. So the virtues of pre-filling an existing customer, checkout will automatically take that data and kind of pre-fill it for us.
Right.
So I'll click this button, and what's going to happen is you'll see in the logs here on the right is that the API will respond with a client secret. And then what's going to happen is the pricing table will initiate here, and I'll be able to actually start a checkout session. So you can see here, the API responded. If you remember the customer ID from before, it ended in ACVS. So that's the customer I've used to generate this client secret. I'm now passing that client secret to this pricing table here via this parameter. And now what happens is, if I go ahead and subscribe, it's the same kind of behavior you will get with pricing table if you used it previously. It's going to generate a checkout session for you. The important thing to know is that it's already pre-filled fields like email address, like the existing payment method that we have on that customer. It's already pre-filled this for us. So that's reducing the kind of inputs that your customers need to put into the checkout form for them to actually pay. So I can just go ahead and click subscribe at this point.
And quick question about that while you're waiting for that to load. So that pre-fill also, one, obviously it's great that our customers don't have to provide as much detail inside of the form. Does that also integrate with Link by Stripe?
And that was separate to Link. So that was that was essentially saving the payment method to the customer object. And what that means is that that customer can now reuse that payment method whenever they check out with you, the Stripe merchant. Link is different in that if you save a payment method with Link, it's then available to across the entire Stripe network. Yeah. So if I then check out with your store tomorrow, Cecil, using that kind of Link account that I would set up, I would be able to access the payment methods I'd saved or used previously.
Got it.
So I've got a webhook set up here. It's just listing for checkout session completed events. We can see our customer ID is there. And obviously the subscription is generated. We'll go back now to our dashboard, just refresh this. You can see I have now my my subscription that we just created there. So that's kind of how pricing table customer reuse works. Hopefully that was clear enough for everybody to understand. This code for this demo is publicly available. I will share the link with Cecil. He can kind of put it in the description afterwards. If people want to kind of understand how it works outside of that. I'm not sure if there's any questions for Cecil.
Yeah, no questions yet. But yeah, if you want, go ahead and drop the link in. You can drop in our private chat, and then I could either add it to the video or we could add it to the notes later whenever folks are ready. And for folks that are watching, like Jonathan said, if there's any questions, feel free to go ahead and ask them in the chat. We are live for now, if you're watching us live. And so if you have any questions, go ahead and I'll try to get them answered for you. Looks like we do have a question right now. It's coming in from YouTube. And Jake Apple, I like his name, Jake Apple. That's a cool name. If you pass a custom session into the pricing table, does it know if the customer already has a subscription?
Yeah, that's a good question. So we're actually going to kind of move, that's a good segue into what I'm going to talk about next. I'd be interested to hear what they mean by that. Do they expect the pricing table UI to change? Or do they mean that will it prevent us from kind of checking out again? Either way, we can kind of cover that now. So what I'll talk about next is subscription uniqueness. So this is a beta that works on checkout surfaces, including pricing table, payment links, that will prevent customers from resubscribing if they already have an active subscription. So this is not controlled by the API, but instead just a dashboard setting. So again, this is in beta. This is due to kind of ship within the next few weeks. And what you'll notice is we have this kind of toggle here, which kind of we can turn on and will limit our customer to a single subscription. So in the previous example I just showed, I checked out by pricing table, my customer now has an active subscription. So what happens is if I was to regenerate the pricing table again for that same customer, I still see the pricing table. And what I can do is I can still actually subscribe again. Now, in some scenarios, some merchants are okay with that. Some merchants may kind of support multiple concurrent subscriptions. However, some don't. Some want to prevent that. And they will write their own logic to prevent that. But they also kind of want Stripe to kind of trying to enforce that limitation as well and kind of validate on uniqueness. So what we can do is we can turn this on. And what this setting will do is it will limit our customers to a single subscription that is deemed active. And by active, I think we mean it's not just the status active, but it's also like trialing, unpaid, and past due. So if a customer has any subscription, if a customer has a subscription that is any of those current states, we deem that as active for the context of this feature. And what will actually happen is instead of seeing the regular kind of checkout UI where it asks you to pay, it says, hey, you've already got a subscription with us. Kind of, we're going to redirect you to either the customer portal or your own website where you can go ahead and manage your existing subscription. So I can configure that here. I can say, hey, please redirect them to the no-code customer portal, or actually I can kind of provide my own website if we're managing subscriptions externally outside of the portal. For this example, we'll just stick to the portal. So with that done now, I should now be able to instantiate a customer session, generate that pricing table as normally. And if I try to now resubscribe again, you can see that we already have this subscription. It's going to prevent us from actually subscribing, and instead it will redirect me to the customer portal. Now, I'm not going to demonstrate that part because that means that I will get an email and I have to go into my emails, and that's not really kind of good practice for a live stream. But it'll work with the no-code portal, as I said, and it will also kind of work with your website if you allow your customers to manage their subscriptions outside of the customer portal. You can use these handy kind of variables to pre-fill the URL. So yeah, it's really helpful. Hopefully that answers your question. I can't remember who asked the question.
Yeah, it was Jake, and Jake made another comment just now, and he says, ideally the UI of the pricing table would change. I don't want the customer to see a subscribe button on the pro plan if they already have that subscription.
Yeah.
Which makes sense, right? Like if we know that you have it, it probably makes sense for us to show a manage, switch or change or cancel, like some type of management on top of that existing thing that's already there. So that makes sense.
Yeah, that's definitely valid feedback, and that's something that's resonated kind of throughout the beta of both the customer session and subscription uniqueness. Merchants have said to us, hey, why doesn't the pricing table actually reflect the status, the subscription status of the customer? And yeah, it's valid feedback, and it's hopefully something we can kind of work on in a future iteration of this. But right now, the pricing table does not account for any kind of active subscriptions. Yeah.
All right. So because of how some of these questions are going, I want to skip ahead to a question that I was going to wait to the end to ask you. For all these features that you're talking about right now, well, thus far, a lot of them are, like you said, they're beta. They're not, generally available to a lot of folks. Whenever folks get into the beta, or whenever they get to the released version of these things, what do you find is some of the best ways for our audience and our customers to give feedback around, ideas and thoughts and use cases about how they're using it and things that they'd like to see?
Yeah, it's a good question. Generally, so I work, like I said, I work pretty closely with the checkout team, and I know for sure that they are very proactive in speaking to users about to gather feedback, especially from beta users. So generally, if you're in a checkout beta, you will have spoken to probably somebody on the team who will have kind of gated your account and will kind of just ask for your feedback or any kind of comments. There's generally an email address that you would have that's associated to that specific beta. So that's kind of one channel. Another channel is kind of just our Discord server. So if you're not familiar with that, the Discord server is kind of where my team staff that to help users integrate with Stripe. But that's also a kind of a good place to share feedback as well. Not specific to just checkout, but kind of any kind of points with Stripe or any kind of API or product that you're kind of integrating with, and you think, hey, why doesn't this work like that? Then that's a good medium to kind of to share that, and then our team will kind of relay that to the relevant product teams.
Awesome, great. So Jake, if you have any feedback or anything like that, like after you try out some of our products, definitely head over to our Discord channel. You can join Jonathan and the rest of the folks over there and talk about it. And I think I have a link for it. I should have a link for our Discord. If I don't have one,
if you go to
I got it. Yeah. So check out this link below. Check out this link below. Head over to Discord, and you could see, you could talk to everyone and ask all your questions. You can ask questions here too. I'm not saying don't ask us questions. I'm just saying when the session is done and you want to share,
we love questions.
You could continue the conversation over there as well.
Yeah. So just on that last point, this is an example of what I was talking about. If you are involved in a beta, there's generally a beta specific email address that is staffed by the team or the engineers that are working on this feature. So generally, you would kind of converse with them via that email address, which is an opportunity for you to kind of share feedback, how things are working, whether things are working as you expect, that kind of thing. So that's generally how it works for betas. But general overall feedback, we kind of welcome that, as I said, on Discord, or even just kind of via our support team, support.stripe.com.
Nice. All right, Jonathan, I know you had a couple more things you want to talk about. I think the next one is
just one more. We're kind of flying today.
We're flying through today a little bit.
Yeah. Okay. Moving on then. So we've talked about customer pass-through with the pricing table. We spoke about subscription uniqueness. The last one I want to talk about is like something that a lot of people have asked for quite a long time, and that is no-cost orders. So currently with checkout, there's a limitation that prevents you from checking out when there is actually no total due. In mode payment sessions, I should quantify. You can obviously check out in a subscription session if you're applying a trial, for example. But in a payment session, right now, you can't have a zero amount. There has to be a payment, and that payment has to be above Stripe's minimum kind of supported payment amounts for the currency, et cetera, et cetera. So that's kind of one really big point of friction for users, and it's something we've been working on to enable today. Two common use cases of that are like applying a 100% discount or just offering a free line item. For example, you might, as part of your service, you might sell a free copy of a book or something like that. But you actually want to kind of track the sales of those. And now you can do that with checkout.
Okay, so explain this to me again. So So we have a minimum
talk about
amount
this
that for
in
Stripe that
two
we have to
separate
charge.
parts because it works differently depending on which product you use. So it works different for checkout sessions if you create them directly by the API, like this example here, as opposed to using it with payment links and pricing tables. They work a little differently, and how it's going to work when it launches will depend on how you're integrating.
Okay. And so,
so what I'm going to do is we are
again.
going to first show a checkout session that I'm going to create in my demo with a price or a line item that has 0 unit amount. So just diving back into my dashboard.
Mm-hmm.
I have this book product here, and you'll notice that it has a free or 0 amount price. Now, previously, what would happen is if I tried to create a checkout session what would happen if I tried to create a checkout session with this price today is it would error. You would get a 400 error saying, you need to give us a line item which actually has an amount. But what happens today is you can, well, not today, sorry, but what happens when this launches is that you will be able to use that 0 amount price as a line item in your checkout session. And the checkout session itself will look a little differently. So I'm just going to go ahead and create this example with this payload. And if you keep your eyes on the right here, you'll see the response from the API. So what we're particularly interested in seeing is looking at the amount total, and you'll notice that that's 0. So previously, as I said, that wasn't possible. You had to have an amount above the minimum threshold for payment for that presentment currency. So what we got is we've got a 0 amount session. The email address is pre-filled from the customer ID, the same customer ID that I was passing to the pricing table earlier. And because there's no payment due, we are not collecting any payment information. We're just going to go ahead and complete the order. And what you'll get is you'll get the same complete checkout session completed webhook event. You'll notice that the status is complete. The mode was payment, and the amount total was 0. So that's one way of using no-cost orders with checkout. Now, I said something earlier that is important to understand, and that's the way that this is going to work is different between whether you're using checkout sessions direct with the API or if you're using one of the other checkout services, like pricing table or payment links. If you're using the API directly like this, then to enable no-cost orders like this, then you will need to use the new API version that we will be releasing in line with this. You will need to upgrade to that API version, and you will automatically be able to create no-cost orders or no-cost checkout sessions. So that is API version restricted. You need to upgrade to that newest API version when it is released sometime in the coming weeks, I believe, in order to do that. Now, it's different for payment links and pricing table. And that is, again, also controlled like subscription uniqueness. It's controlled by the checkout sessions. Checkout settings in our dashboard. So if we go back into the settings, you'll notice there's a little section here. It says no cost orders. Allow customers to place orders at no cost when using payment links or pricing tables without the need to enter payment information. So if I want to do that with a payment link, for example, or pricing table, for example, then I need to enable it specifically in the dashboard. The two can run separately. So if you upgrade to the API version, I believe that you will still need to enable this specifically for payment links. And equally, you can enable payment links and pricing table no-cost orders without upgrading your API version. So the two are kind of completely detached in that context. Mm-hmm. So depending on how you integrate will depend on kind of how you need to upgrade your integration. So we'll just demonstrate how this works currently. So I have a payment link here. And I also have a 100% off coupon. So I want to apply that here to kind of reduce this to 0. And what you'll get back is this kind of really vague error. This code is invalid. Well, we know that that's wrong because it's right there. The reason for that is, as I said, the checkout session has to have, as it stands right now, checkout has to have a payment associated to it. It has to have an actual payment amount that is above the minimum threshold for that currency. So for, I believe for GBP, it's like maybe 50 pence or something like that. And obviously, if we apply 100% off coupon, it's going to go below that threshold. So we can't actually apply in this case.
Yeah.
So what I'm going to do, I'm going to go back into my checkout session settings, where I'm going to enable no-cost orders. It's important to know as well that this setting is not scoped per environment, and by that I mean there is not a setting in test mode and then a different setting in live mode. If I enable this here, then it applies to both test mode and live mode. So this is why you essentially have kind of 3 days to undo the change. So what you can do is you can enable it, you can try it out in test mode, say, hey, I actually don't want to kind of offer this feature, and then you can kind of turn it off. But for this example, we're just going to quickly enable it. You can see there I can undo the change until 3 days from now. So if we go back to our payment link that we just used before, we want to go ahead and apply the same coupon as before, and this time it should actually apply. Total due is 0. All it needs from us is an email address. Again, we got the same checkout session completed event over here. You can see that came from our payment link. Status is completed. Amount subtotal was £10, but because of the discounts applied via the promotion code, the actual total was 0. So yeah, that is no cost orders. I expect there to be some questions about this because of how the intricacies of how it works across both the API part and payment links and stuff like that. Yeah, I don't know if there's any questions coming in, or if you have any questions, Cecil.
No questions coming in yet from folks. But no, this all looks pretty straightforward for me. For folks that are still here and watching, let us know if you have any questions about anything that Jonathan's
I'm not sure if you're
so
speaking,
far.
but I can't hear you.
Can you not hear me? No? Yes? No?
Oh, somehow my AirPods are disconnected. I can hear you now.
Oh, okay. Because I was talking the whole time. I don't know. I guess you didn't.
I have no idea how long they've been disconnected.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I was talking the whole time, but I guess you. Okay, no worries.
Dear.
What I was saying is,
yeah.
If while you were talking, I had a question, or I was thinking about like what could be those possible use cases of why I would do something like that, and you did show off one, but I also think about again cases where I want to track orders, but I don't want to charge people, right? Like you said, you gave the example of 100% off coupon, or you ever see those websites where folks are selling ebooks and it starts at 0, right? Like you can just send you the ebook for free. It starts at 0, but then you can adjust the pricing, like a pay what you want type scenario.
Right.
So I guess I'm wondering too, because I know sometime before we also enabled we have a feature that allows the user to say what they want to pay, right?
Exactly.
So did that feature have an implied minimum, and then does this feature affect that feature also?
Yeah, it's a great question, and so the way that the custom amounts or pay what you want is what you referred to earlier, is it does also require a minimum. So there had to be a minimum, and that minimum would be in line with the kind of the minimum support amount for that currency. What I believe, and I will confirm this kind of offline. What I believe to be the case is that when you use pay what you want now, I believe that minimum will be redundant now. I will have to confirm that, but that's a great question. So I imagine what you're saying is that you could be, in theory, have a session where you could enable pay what you want, and the minimum be 0 and the maximum be 100, etc., etc.
Yeah, exactly. Like a scenario like that, because we've seen folks that do self-publishing, as an example, that create different ebooks or whatever, and it'll be like, oh well, the book's free, but buy me a coffee or donate to this thing or whatever the case is, and then now there's a variable amount. But
let's quickly try it. Let me just see. Let's see how this works. So just going to create a payment link quickly here. Customers choose what to pay. Select limits. So the minimum amount there is, so the minimum amount is 30 pence. Let me see. So let's see what happens here. Yeah, so it looks like we still expect a bit to be a minimum. Now, that's not to say that this is going to launch this way. Obviously, this is still in beta, so there may be work down the line before this launches GA for them to remove that validation and to enable custom amounts with a minimum of 0. I will check up on that, so we can follow up on that. I'll circle back on the video and leave a comment once I've actually checked on that. But yeah, it's a good call out.
Yeah, I think that would be interesting to see like how these additional features that you've been speaking about kind of like permeate throughout all the other existing functionality that we already have. Because it kind of just makes sense, right? If we can do it in one place, we should be able to do it in some other places as well.
So there are 2 other things. I don't know if you're going to say something else. You had a question.
No, go for it.
Yeah. So there's 2 other things I want to point out. So you're probably asking yourself, how do I kind of handle fulfillment if I get a session paid for 0 amount? Because there's actually not a payment intent, or there's no payment created in the dashboard here. You'll notice that there's no 0 amount. So what we have built as part of this workflow is oh wait, has that not actually worked? Did I turn that on? Interesting. Okay, so this has failed me. But normally, what we've built here is what should be here is an additional tab in the dashboard for no order purchases or no cost orders. And that would essentially surface all the checkout sessions where there's been no actual payment associated, but obviously you need kind of details about the order to fulfill it, or et cetera, et cetera. So that will be surfaced in the dashboard. Again, this is in beta, so there is bound to be bugs, and I've obviously stumbled across one right here, because normally there is a tab right here that will allow me to view those transactions. I'll just go ahead and quickly trigger one more just to make sure.
But kind of like you said, from a fulfillment perspective, even though you don't necessarily see, even though you're not seeing it right now, on the back end, you're still gonna get like those. You're still gonna get those webhooks, right? Like session completed or something like that. And you can check the status and be like, okay, well, this is good. I can kick off my back end workflow, using some of that type of stuff.
Exactly. Yeah. So that's another thing worth pointing about in regards to fulfillment, is that anybody utilizing no cost orders has to use checkout session completed events. What we do here from merchants who are using checkout is that they still sometimes rely on payment intent events, so payment intent succeeded, et cetera, et cetera. Those in the context of no cost orders, those are redundant because there is no payment intent, so there won't be any payment intent events. So as per our regular recommendation, if you are using checkout, you should be using checkout session completed events for fulfillment, as opposed to payment intent succeeded. And that's even more true now if in the world of no cost orders, if you start to utilize them. Yeah, you can see down here, there's a note to the no-cost orders tab in the dashboard. But for some reason, I have stumbled across a bug where it's not present for me for some reason, which is frustrating.
I mean, it is beta, right? So we can
Right,
expect these things
exactly.
to happen sometimes.
Yeah,
You know,
100%.
but quick question. Question coming in from YouTube. This one is from Oscar R0. Oscar's asking, has auto currency conversions been added yet? Now, I know we do have a level of support for multiple currencies, right? But what about currency conversions? Because I feel like that's a little bit more of a controversial thing to have automatically happen for you.
Yeah, so checkout does actually support ACC, as we refer to it, so automatically currency conversion. This is available to merchants in the US and Canada currently. And it's supported on one-time payments from USD or Canadian dollars for merchants, or sorry, for customers in these following markets. So if you were to create, as a US merchant, if you were to create a checkout session with a USD price, you can enable ACC on your checkout session, and it will be automatically, the USD will be automatically converted to the currency of the customer's locale. So, for example, if I was to check out on a US merchant today who was offering USD payment, we would automatically convert that USD payment to GBP based on kind of markets or FX markets kind of at the time of payment. That works differently to multi-currency prices, where the onus is on you, the merchants, to maintain the different currency options on the price. There's no automatic currency conversion in there. You've got to kind of maintain the currency options. So if they fluctuate and you want to kind of keep on track of that, you have to do that manually. Whereas automatic currency conversion, as the description implies, kind of takes care of that for you. Perhaps that's something for us to kind of look at in the next one, because I don't have. Sorry, go ahead.
I was saying, yeah, that could be interesting, because I don't think we've spoken about it on any of our channels and blog posts a tremendous amount, and it seems like something folks would be interested in.
Yeah, for sure. Like I think one of the kind of caveats, obviously, is that it's only available to US and Canadian merchants, so it doesn't have a global appeal right now. But hopefully that will expand. But yeah, it's definitely a great feature if you are a US merchant that's selling kind of globally.
Yeah. So I'm going to make this comment, and I make this comment without any insider information. I'm just making an assumption. So for folks that are watching this, don't get me in trouble. I'm just making an assumption. But when I see features like that from any company that say, hey, this is only available in these regions, usually it says to me that the company, whoever the company is, waiting to kind of see what the demand looks like. So if you're watching this and you're in another different country, and this is something that's interesting to you and you care about it, something you really want, you should let us know. Right? If you let us know, then folks could be like, okay, well, this is an area that we should really invest in. You know, if there's hundreds and thousands of customers and one person wants it, you can imagine, realistically speaking, like that's probably not going to be high on the list of priorities. But you know, if a lot of folks want it, if people are really like, hey, this is important for our businesses, we're trying to expand and we're trying to, you know, go global and do all these other types of things, let us know, right? And if you let us know, we could be like, okay, well, this is a thing that people really care about because they keep asking about it. We should prioritize this feature. So again, that's kind of how that's just how the world works in my head.
One more thing on the no cost orders, you can actually test it out separately to enabling it in the dashboard. So if you wanted to test it out in test mode with a payment link without actually enabling it, you can leverage the pre-filled email URL param and append the email address with this no cost orders string, and then you should be able to kind of apply a discount to actually reduce the total down to 0. So I'll just go ahead and demonstrate that. So I've disabled the no cost orders here in the dashboard. So what will happen is if I go to my payment link now, I go to my payment link now and I try to apply that discount, little error. Now, if I open the same payment link and pre-fill, if I use the pre-fill URL param here, pre-fill the email equals jsteele plus no cost orders at stripe.com. So what that's essentially saying is we're bypassing the setting in the dashboard and enabling it on this kind of per case basis. This should now work. Yeah. So if you want to try it out without actually enabling the set in the dashboard, just in case you enable it and then you forget about it and then it's too late to roll it back, you can test it. You'll be able to test it separately using the URL parameter. So we use that as like an escape hatch for those who didn't want to necessarily enable the feature without trying it out first. So that's the escape hatch to use there. Again, this applies as well to the pricing table where you can use the customer email property and kind of append the same no cost orders thing to the email address.
So Jonathan, so we've been on for a while. We actually burned the whole hour, even though it seemed like we were going quickly.
Yeah,
we actually burned the whole hour. I really love all of these features, but the one burning question that I was intentionally waiting on asking you, but that I've been thinking about the entire time: how do I get access to the betas? Because all these features are beta, right? It means they're not public. That means that I can't just download the SDK and I just have them, right? So how do I as in not Cecil, but people that are watching the video, how do we get access to the betas? And then I don't know if there's any publicly available timeline that we could talk about general availability.
Okay, so yeah, so the very nature of betas is obviously complex, and whilst the features I've kind of shown today and talked about today are in a state to the point where I can talk about them publicly, there's obviously things that can still change. Goalposts can still move, dates can still move, etc., etc. So I'm not here to talk about a specific date, but we're far enough along in these features to the point where we're kind of ready to talk about them publicly. So yeah, we're in Q3 now. I would definitely say that all three of these features will be launched by the end of Q3. Very soon for all of them. In regards to getting access to the betas, I think my understanding is that these specific betas are we're pretty much set in their positioning, their API shape, etc., etc. So they're not necessarily looking for new merchants to join the beta, which is indicative of how close we are to actually releasing these features. So in this specific case, we're not looking for beta testers, so I'm sorry, but I'm sure by the time a lot of people actually watch this video, some of these features might be available. Again, I can't commit to a specific set date, but some of them are pretty close. In regards to other betas that might be in the work, if anybody is interested in beta testing other features, but check out generally the way that works is you would come into conversation with somebody at Stripe and you would ask about a specific feature, and it just so happens that we're already working on it. Then you would be kind of hey, we're working on this. Let us show you how what we've been working on. Otherwise, if people are interested in other things that we're working on, and there are other things that are coming in the pipeline that are really exciting, and please just you can reach out to me on Twitter. I'm happy to chat with people who are using checkout and have a specific feature that they would love to see, can see if it's something we're thinking about or something we're working on. So please just reach out on Twitter or email me as well.
Yeah, email, Twitter, Discord. Like I said, we keep pushing the Discord. Make sure folks go in and talk to different folks in Discord. Only because there's just so many other people there and other community members, as well as Stripe employees and different folks and community customers and stuff like that. So definitely make sure you check that out. I think I shared the link earlier, but for folks that may have been popping in and out, here's the link again for our Discord channel. if you go to that link, you'll be able to, you get the invitation and you join Discord, and you can use it in your browser or the client app, whichever one of it that you feel like using. And you can ask these questions and talk to the folks in our engineering teams and support teams and things of that nature, so you can learn a little bit more about some of these features, how they're developing and how you can get involved.
Yeah. I spoke earlier about the kind of demo code that I've been shown. Are you still sharing my screen? I don't know.
Yeah, your screen is still up. And then you know what you could do too, Jonathan? Like if you drop it in the private chat, like I can bring it up too, and I could like burn it in the video so people that are watching can have it too.
Yeah, if you stop sharing my screen, then just because that's on another tab and there's other windows.
Okay. Screen is no longer shared.
All right, I'll send the link now. Great.
No problem.
Here we go. Yeah, perfect.
All right, cool. I'll pull this up right now, and then I'll add this to the video. I think this is another good call out too, because I think, Jonathan, every time you come on here, a lot of your demos and things that you showcase and whatnot are on GitHub, right? So for folks, I don't know if people follow people on GitHub. I don't know if that's the thing that people do. It's not like a social chatty place. I like to follow people on GitHub because I love to, developers stalk them and see when new features are coming out. But here's Jonathan's. You can see his personal, Stripe GitHub, as well as the stuff that he spoke about today. So you head over to jsteele-stripe/what's new checkout Q2 23, and then you can see some of the, some of the things that he spoke about today, as well as maybe some of the other things he's gonna put together in the future with no specific date specified. With that being said, I don't think we have any more questions. For folks that are here, thank you all so much. If you're watching this video later, feel free to go ahead and drop a comment in the comment box in the bottom of the video. We do monitor those, and we have things that look at them. If you have more questions, go ahead and drop them there. Like Jonathan said, you can follow him on Twitter. Right under his name is his Twitter handle. You can follow me on Twitter. We're both on LinkedIn and in Discord as well. So feel free to at us in Discord or anything like that. And then, we'd love to hear what you're building, what you're doing with Checkout, what you're doing with Stripe in general, SDKs that you're using, and the type of scenarios you're trying to cover. And we'll do our best to try and help you out. But with that being said, that's been the show. Jonathan, thank you so much for coming on. Appreciate you as always.
Thanks for having me.
Thank all of you for watching. This has been another episode of Stripe Dev Chats, and we will see you all next time. Bye, everyone.
Take care.